This video took a very long time to make. It's still taking time because I'm still filming. Yeah, welcome to the channel. My name is Ndifon. Ntui. I make sewing tutorials. I started this video that you're about to see. It took 10 hours to make, 7 hours sewing, roughly I think even 11 hours, because even after this I'm still going to be editing this part of the video. But yeah, thank you for tuning in, thank you for watching. I dropped a picture of this top on my channel a few days ago, asking you guys if you guys wanted to see the video. You guys said yes, so here we have it. This is a tutorial on how to make this top. I hope that you guys love it, I hope you enjoy it. Please do not forget to like this video. If you like the video, do not forget to subscribe. If you have not subscribed already, there are a lot of you that watch my channel that have not subscribed. Just simply click on the subscribe button at the bottom of this video that you are watching. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you in the next video. Do have a lovely day. Bye bye. And in case you forgot, I still offer sewing tutorials on Telegram to give you step by step on how to go about your sewing journey. If you're interested, send me a message. My number is on the screen. I'll see you in the next video. Like I said, bye. Alright, you're welcome to this video. In this video I'm going to show you how to make the top that we're all here to see. Alright, so to begin, I have my pattern paper here. I'm not going to put it on the fold. I'm going to just lay it down as it is and I'm going to draft on it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll a 1/2 inch line from the top all the way down on this side. Now that 1/2 inch line is the sewing allowance we're keeping for the zip that we're going to attach in front. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is at the top here, I'm going to keep sewing allowance for my shoulder, so 1/2 inch away from the edge of the paper. The next thing I'm going to do, so what we're doing here is we're basically drafting the bodice. So up here, I'm going to place my shoulder at the shoulder divided by 2. So my shoulder is 14. I'm going to come here and make a mark at 7. 14 divided by 2 is 7. I'm going to come down by 1 inch. That's for my shoulder slope. Is I'm going to place my under bust length. Shoulder to under the bust was 14, so I'm going to make a mark at 14. To find where the bust will sit, you count 4 inches away from your under bust length. So 1, 2, 3, 4 give us 10. I'm going to place the shoulder to the waist, so I took the measurement from the shoulder to the belly button. That was 19. And then I'm going to place the top length. The top length is 26. Alright, so I'm now going to rule lines across all these points. Alright, after we've ruled all our lines, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place all the horizontal measurements that are supposed to sit across these points. So here we know that it's our bust, that this part here is our bust, so we're going to come over here and we're going to place our bust on this point. So the bust is 34 divided by 4 is going to give us 8.5. I'm going to mark 8.5 over here. And then the next thing I'm going to place here is the under bust round. So the under bust round is 28. 28 divided by 4 is 7. I'm going to make a mark at 7 here. And then at this point here, that's the waistline. I'm going to place the waist measurement. So the waist measurement is 27. 27 divided by 4 is 6.75, so almost 7. And then I'm going to place the same thing I placed here down here, so 6.7 down here as well. And then the next thing we're going to do, another line we need to add, you're going to come to your under bust length, okay? And then you're going to come 2 inches away from your under bust length. You're going to rule another line. Alright, and then at this point you're going to place the same thing you placed as your under bust length here. So at your under bust length you place 7 inches, that's the under bust round divided by 4. So I'll place the same thing here. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to connect all these lines together. Next thing I'm going to do is we're going to place our armhole measurement. How to find the armhole is your bust divided by 6 plus 1.5. So the bust being 34 divided by 6 plus 1.5 gives us 7.1. Alright, so now we have our basic bodice. Basically, the next thing we're going to have do is to start turning this into an 8-piece top. So the first step of that is going to be we're going to place our bust point to bust point. So your nipple to nipple divided by 2 plus 1.5. The nipple to nipple for the measurement I'm working with is 7. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5 plus 1.5 gives us 4. So I'm going to place 4 on every line that we have here, and I'm going to rule a line connecting them. Then the next thing I'm going to do is from here I'm going to measure the armhole, alright? Because what I'm doing is I'm trying to cut it as a princess dart. If you see my princess dart video, all of this should be easy. So I'm going to measure the armhole. So I have 8.5 for my armhole. I'm going to bend that in half, basically divide it in 2, and then I'm going to make a mark at wherever the middle of that number stops. So I've made a mark at the middle of that armhole. I'm going to connect here to there. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the bust, to the under bust line. So you see the under bust line here. I'm going to come out to 1.5, and I'll place this 1.5 everywhere here, all the way down. Now, if you are working with a bigger bust, because this bust is 34, so from like around 32 to 35, I would use 1.5 here. If I was working with a bust that's from 36 all the way up to around 41, I will use 2 inches. I would have used 2 inches here. Alright, so now that we have done that, next thing we're going to do, we're going to come to the top of the armhole. We need to make some changes there as well. So the first thing we're going to do is over at the armhole, we're going to come down 1 inch at the bottom and ½ inch at the top. So 1 inch at the bottom after this line and ½ inch at the top. Alright, and then we're going to connect this line to here and this to here. And then we're going to extend from here, we're going to extend it up by 1 inch. So now that we have done that, we need to replace all the allowances that we have taken out on this side and here. So the first allowance I'm going to replace is this 1 inch. I'm going to come here, make a mark at 1 inch. Now this allowance I'm replacing is not the sewing allowance. This is just me paying back for all that I have taken. Over here, I'm going to place that 1.5. I'm going to now connect this line to here and take it straight down. Now, after you have paid, because this edge, this part we've added here is paying for all of this allowance that we have here. Now the next step is to add our sewing allowance. But before you start adding that sewing allowance, you need to know that you need to add extra 1 inch to that sewing allowance. And the reason why you're adding extra 1 inch is because when you're joining this place, you see this place here, ½ inch will be consumed here and here when you're joining it back. Over here, all these places here, ½ inch, when you're joining it back, you will lose ½ inch here and ½ inch here. You lose ½ inch from here and ½ inch from here. So you need to add 1 inch to whatever measurements you keep normally, whatever allowance you keep normally. So instead of keeping 1.5 like I normally do, I'm going to place 2.5 inches of allowance. Here we have allowance at the bottom already, so we're not going to tamper with that. We're simply just going to add allowance ½ inch to the top part of the shoulder. That ½ inch is the allowance I'll use for joining my front and back shoulder together. The next step is to cut it out. Now I know that we have not touched on the neckline. That's because you can see that this has a collar. So yeah, we're going to need to cut the neckline as if we're making a shirt somehow. Alright, so let me go ahead and cut this out. So watch and see how I cut out the pattern. So now I will go ahead to draft the back. When I'm drafting the back, now you can remember the initial draft that we drafted before we started cutting out, placing the bust point to bust point and cutting out all of this. The back will be identical to the front, just a regular bodice. But do not add this. You see this ½ inch here, this sewing allowance, the zipper allowance I added to the front on this part here. Please do not add this to the back because the back doesn't have a zipper. Alright, so you can see what I have here is a regular bodice. I have not altered this in any way. Under bust length, 2 inches after the under bust length. This is the shoulder to the waist, that's where the belly button is, and this part here is the top length. So just regular bodice. Next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to place 4 just like we did before. That's the same, using the same measurement. I'm going to place it on all the dots that we have. And then I'm going to place the armhole measurement the same way I did before. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to make any cuts at the top here like I did in the front. So at the back here, you're going to skip all of these places. You're not going to make any cuts there, and then you'll come to 2 inches after the underbust. So you see here, that's this 2 inches after the underbust that I placed. At this point here, you're going to take out ½ inch on both sides. So it's only like a 1 inch that. So for ½ inch to the left, ½ inch to the right, we're going to connect our lines together. So you're going to connect it from here to here, connect from here to here, and then you're going to taper it out. So you're not going to roll it straight down, you're going to gently taper it out back into the main line. Alright, so now after we've done that, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to have to keep allowances for joining it back together. So once you make a cut here, even without this that being here, once you make a cut here, when you're joining it back together, it's going to take away 1 inch plus the 1 inch that we're taking out here. So for this 1 inch that we're taking out here, because it's a that, we are not going to replace the allowance for the 1 inch. So the 1 inch I'm going to add now to the side. It's not supposed to replace this. It's supposed to replace the ½ inch and the ½ inch here that will be consumed when we're joining. So this that will still be able to serve the function of making the waist part, the back part of the waist to lay flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place 1 inch here, 1 inch everywhere. Now that 1 inch is paying for the joining, the ½ inch joining we're going to join this back with. Alright, and then I will add my regular allowance of 1.5 inches. Alright, so now what I'll just simply do, let me just place 2.5 at the side. We know that 2.5 is 2.5 because 1 inch is for the joining and 1.5 inch is for my regular allowance. And now the next thing is simply cut it out. But before you cut it out, please be sure to label it. Alright, so now I've cut the back. Let's move on to cutting the neckline. So on the table here, I have the front and I have the back. You can see the front has ½ inch in front for our zipper allowance and the back does not. When you want to start cutting the neckline, what you're going to do, you're going to keep the front down like so. You're going to pick up the back, alright, and you're going to align both sides of the neckline. So you see this ½ inch line that I have running here. You're going to align this ½ inch, this line that starts, ½ inch after the shoulder. You're going to align it with this ½ inch line because that's where your lines are going to cross. So you want to place them right on top of each other. And then you can see that in front here, I pushed out this part of the shoulder out by ½ inch because of this ½ inch we have in front of here. So don't push the ½ inch in and make the shoulder stick out this way. Instead, you align the shoulder on this side, push out the ½ inch in front. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to bring the neck measurement. So that's the measurement that was taken around the neck snug with 2 fingers inside the tape. So the tape, you put 2 fingers and put the tape around there. Alright, so that's how you take that measurement. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take that measurement. So for me that's 13.5. So you will take that 13.5 and you will divide it in half. Alright, so 13.5 divided by 2 is going to give us 6.75, and then you will subtract 1 inch from that number. So here I'm going to place 5.75 for my curve. So basically just keep the back on top of this. You see this thing? When you are placing your tape down with that 5.75, you want to keep your tape right on top of this ½ inch, because remember we have ½ inch. This ½ inch is sitting on top of the main neckline line. Alright, so what you're going to do is you're going to take that tape, place it on top of there, and then arrange the next of the 5.75, the rest of the 5.75 in front like so. Connect all the lines together. Alright, so when you've done that, you can go ahead and cut out the neckline. Alright, so now we have cut the front and we have cut the back. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to need to attach the flay to all these patterns. Alright, so after the neckline, you can see here we have the front, and this is the front, the center front, and the side of the front. Now let's not forget that this is an 8-piece top, so the bottom and it has a flay at the bottom, so we're going to need to add that flay in now. This front side is going to have a flay both in front and on the side here. The same thing for this part here, is going to have a flay from this side and on this side here. The same thing for the back. The only place where I'm not going to add a flay would be in the center of the back. So you can see here we have the back. This is the side of the back. This is the center of the back. I'm going to add a flay added to this extra flay here. I'm going to add a flay added to this center part. I'm going to add a flay here. I'm not going to add it here because I didn't keep provision for the ½ inch here. I could add it to the fabric if I wanted by just simply increasing ½ inch here and then flaying out this way, but I don't think I want to do that. But this part here would have regular flays on both sides, so it's going to fan out on both sides like so. So I'm going to show you what to do on this part, and then you simply repeat the same thing for every part where you want to have a flay. So you're going to take a random piece of paper like so, and you're going to place it under your pattern. Make sure you align it at the bottom. That's where you have plus your allowance. Just align it. Don't look at where this top line is. That's not where the main line is. Just a random piece of paper. It could be as big but don't make it so small that it's lower than this line here. But just watch what I'm doing. That will give you an idea on how large you should cut your paper. Alright, so I'm going to just simply tape this down. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is we're going to come over to the bottom line. So you see this ½ inch line, this line that I have here before the allowance. I'm going to come here and I'm going to add 4 inches of allowance in front of it and 4 inches of allowance by the side. Now you've seen the end result at the beginning of the video. So if you want more flay, if you want it to be fuller than the one you saw at the beginning, this is where you would increase it. So you can make it 6, but 6 that would be extreme, but I would say 5 is okay. But here you can see that it's 4 that I used for mine. So if you want to replicate exactly how I made my flay, this would be where you do that. Next thing I'm going to do, for where the flay is going to start from, you see this line that I have here that sits directly on the waist, that's around the belly button. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up by 1 inch, and that's where we're going to start the flay from. Alright, so I'm going to make a line from here to here. So that's it basically. Now when you are cutting, make sure that you fold the bottom when you are cutting, so that the bottom of the flay is properly, looks proper. You know, it will sit proper. To make sure that it sits properly with your lining, you want to make sure that you fold the allowance before you cut. Alright, so you see the way the allowance is. Alright, you see that? So yeah, I'm going to repeat this on all the other sides, and then we'll be back to start cutting the fabric. Alright, so here we have both sides of the front, and then here we have both sides of the back. Alright, so here we have the fabric I'm using. Then this is the fabric that I'll cut all those patterns out of. Well, before I start cutting for every part, I'm going to first iron my S-stay to the wrong side in case the fabric shrinks a little bit. I want my measurements to be precise. So you just simply get your pattern, you just place your pattern on top and get a rough idea of how much fabric you are going to end up using. So like here, I know that okay, I'm going to need to make a fold, and I'll cover roughly this much times 2, and then iron your S-stay on that part before placing your pattern on top to cut. So let me go ahead and iron my S-stay. Now this S-stay is woven fusible interfacing, lightweight woven fusible interfacing. It has a heat activated adhesive on one side. I ironed this to the wrong side of my fabric. So now I'm going to repeat this step on all the other sides of the top. Alright, so this is the center of the front. I'm done with it. I'm now going to do the side of the front, the center of the back, and the side of the back. And after I'm done with that, I'll come to give you instructions on how to cut the lining. Alright, so over here you can see this is the back that we have over here. Let me bring the front and show you. Alright, and this is the front. So the next thing is to cut the lining. So just like on the fabric, I'm going to iron an interfacing to my lining before I cut. Alright, but I'm cutting the lining using all the patterns. This is identical to the front. The changes I'm going to make to the lining I will show you on camera. So I'm going to iron this to one side of my lining before I go ahead to cut. This is woven fusible, lightweight woven fusible. This is lightweight non-woven fusible interfacing. So it's basically paper. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, iron this onto my lining, cut my lining, and then I'll come back to show you the changes we would make so we can move on from there. I've gone ahead to cut the lining. You can see it under here. The only difference between the fabric and the lining is that you're going to cut the lining to be 2.5 inches shorter than the fabric. Alright, so I'm going to repeat the same thing on this side as well and on the back, so that the lining would drag the fabric under, and that's this sharp edge. You see this? Because of this cut that we're making, this sharp edge will now become flat like so. Alright, so this is the back over here. I've done the same thing. I've cut the lining shorter on both the center and the side. So we have a lot of sewing to do. So to reduce the amount of fabrics we are dealing with, the back, we are basically done with most of what we have to do for the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and join the side to the center off camera. So I'm going to simply sew this one here to here. I'm going to turn it like this, keep it like so, and then I'm going to gently sew from here all the way down on both this side and on this side, and then I'll repeat the same thing on the lining. After that I'll be back. Alright, so this is the lining. You can see I've joined the side to the center, and the fabric I've done the same thing. Okay, the side has been joined to the center. You can see now it's looking more like the back of a top. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is just to hold these two pieces together, because most of the sewing that we need to do on this, we're done with it. We're going to come to the bottom part. So that's the end that you have here. You're going to join them together, but you are not going to start from the edge, like from here. Keep a space of like 3 inches away from the edge and start sewing from there. Then you're going to come all across the bottom to the other side and stop 3 inches before you get to the end again. That's so that it will allow you to join the front to the back on the sides easily. Alright, so if you see, I've joined the bottom part. You can see here is not joined, and here. Alright, here we have the front, the side, and the center of one of the centers of the center of the front. Now, what I did at the bottom part of the back that was making it to stand, even though I have not explained why it was doing that, was I ironed medium weight non-woven fusible interfacing. Now this is similar to what we ironed on the lining, but it's a bit harder. This feels actually like paper. It's not the hardest one available. So like I said, medium weight. So there's the light one, that's the one I used to iron on the lining before we cut. Then there's one that is thicker than this. I'm not using that one because it's always too cardboardish. Yeah, I would call that I would say that one feels like cardboard, this feels like paper, and the other one feels like tissue. So that's how you differentiate. And yeah, this top is very labor intensive. If you are going to make this for someone commercially, make sure you charge the person without conscience. Like seriously. I'm going to iron this pattern here. So from where the fillet starts from, I'm going to iron this stay from here, for this gum stay, from here down to here. Alright? On both this center and on the side. Alright, so now the bottom of the fillet parts now will now be hard, and it would stand once you stitch here and here together. Once you stitch here together, the paper, if I even leave it now, you will see that because it's paper, it's not going to fall. It's not going to fall down like a paper would, like it would have if we didn't add this. But I'm going to go ahead to join here to here, just like how I did the front. Now if you're wondering, I'm not going to pad this bust area because this is going to be worn with a bra. I'll drop a link in the description on how to pad a bustier. That will tell you how to pad this completely if you wanted to do all of that. But I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to just move on to joining this together, and this will be worn with a bra. Alright, so I have joined this part, and it's at the same points that we got our back to before we started working on the lining. So I'm going to go ahead and work on the lining. Same thing we did before. We're going to simply just join here, 1/2 inch all the way up, joining the bust as we go along. Alright, so let me go and do this. Alright, so with that I have joined the lining. The next thing is to fix okay, we'll first repeat this step on the other side of the fabric and the lining of the front, and then we'll install the zipper